Hello, welcome to Hope and Healing at Home. Today we are looking for clues. We're going off this theme of trees. I'm quite inspired lately by all the new growth around me and the transforming trees. So I got a couple things today for you. One is the art activity of the looking for clues. And then the second thing is my new 100 tree challenge, inspired by a couple things. Probably the main one, Kate Barazzuol. She has a couple terrific free classes. One is the 100 bouquet challenge and one is trees in the mist. I'll have links to her blog and her website and some other information about her in my newsletter this week, which you can sign up for at hopeandhealingathome.com. I do encourage you to grab whatever supplies inspire you or you feel comfortable with today. Watercolors, pencils, pens, ink tints, paints, collage materials. I have these really fun powdered pigments that I'm going to try to use those today. And then I have this terrific wood grain stencil that I thought was sort of appropriate. So last week we explored our internal paradigm by examining the root system. We compared our life to a tree and our root systems to our belief systems, our paradigms, and the things that nourish our lives and the things that root our lives in place. And now sometimes we need to cut them off so that new roots can grow to a better source of nutrition or water, and we can release the root that was growing in a bad place or the root that was tied to something like a big rock or boulder that we didn't want to be carrying anymore or diverting our life around anymore. So that was last week. Make sure you check out that video if you're curious. And then this week, I thought I would zoom out a little bit. So make sure to get a fresh page for yourself in your journal or notebook or just a fresh piece of paper for yourself to work on. And start thinking about zooming out from your life, sort of like a helicopter or a drone might do. We don't want to go as far up as an airplane because we want to be able to see the map. We want to be able to see the path that we are leaving behind us. And if there's a path up ahead where it might be going, sort of like a road map would be a good example, and also a trail map. They're not always 100% accurate. I will testify to that, but they can be really helpful in before you get too far off course or too far down one path, you can catch yourself and you can backtrack. Or if a part of the trail got washed out, you can make note of that. You can divert your path, or you can find another way to get back onto the path that you wanted to. Again, lots of ways to do this. You could literally scribble on your paper and see what sort of path you find in there. You could create a very simple path and put some road signs. But what we want to be thinking about is, where might the path be going? Can we see a destination point? Is the path clear, or is it getting crowded out by trees? Is there something blocking your view? So I'm just going to work on creating a little bit of a background here. This is just water in a spray bottle because these pigments need to get activated. Otherwise, they are just powder on your page. And as I kind of make these movements, they sort of remind me of the trees. So part of this is really just playing. Again, with art therapy, you don't want to have a huge plan up ahead of time. You just, in your mind, you just ask yourself, you sort of set out with an intention of what you're wanting to explore with your art materials today. And then you just do a little bit of playing and see what happens. Now, because I'm doing this live and I just put a whole bunch of water on the paper, I won't be able to use any markers or pens or pencils on top of this because that will mess with the paper too much. And it might rip it, might not work, might just lead to some frustration. But that's okay. I always finish these up and we'll post a finished picture later. So I just want to let my mind wander on this trail that I'm on and think about what colors there might be, what different shades, if it's a wooded path, if it's a path by a river or in a city, on a mountain, is it a cliffside, is it a desert? So as you're thinking all those things, let colors emerge. Pick the color that just seems right to you as you're in your mind comparing your life to a trail. What do you see around you? What do you feel around you? Is there something scary? What's the lighting like? Is there a place to rest? Is it a really difficult journey? So if you notice with these pigments, if you put the powder on pretty thick, it is very dark. And I don't know if this technique is going to work on this paper. I don't have exactly the right paper, I just have regular computer paper. But sometimes what you can do is take some of it out using a stencil. And again, I might have let that dry a little bit too long to make this work. We'll see if it works for you though. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, to try something new. You can see it a little bit. Let's see if I can get that better for you. There's just something to this process of trying new things that can be enjoyable. Don't stress out. And if it doesn't work, that is okay too. We can try option 2. One thing you can do with these pigments is you can get a second palette going. I'm just going to use the top of the box. And you can activate them with some water right on this palette. And then you can dab it on to a stencil. And just because you have a stencil doesn't mean you have to use every bit of the stencil. So other things to think about on your trail. Are you traveling alone? Are you traveling with a person or an animal? What's the lighting like? Is there something scary? Like, do you feel like you're getting stalked or followed by something? Are there any indicators of where your trail is headed? Is the light changing? Is the density of the trees changing? Do you hear any different noises, like the sound of a babbling brook or the sound of a street? Maybe if you're traveling with company, is it helpful company? Is it enjoyable company? Do you need to part ways with anyone? Do you wish you could join up with somebody and not be trying to navigate this trail alone? The best bet for wet paper right now is probably going to be the Neocolor water-soluble crayons. Actually, they're technically water-soluble pastels. I feel like I want to add some tree trunks in here. And these can be wet or dry when you first apply them. Obviously, my trail started getting a very, I'm over here looking at my trail. You could draw an aerial perspective, so it felt more like you're looking down on a map. Totally up to you how you want to do it. Just think about the different things that you want to be adding. Maybe you want to let things just smear and drip. Maybe you want to be a little bit more intentional with thinking of the trail. I'm really focused right now on the surroundings of my trail. But you could also be thinking of what the actual trail is looking like. Is it smooth? Is it rocky? Are there places where the trail diverges and kind of disappears into the background? Does it stay along the riverbank? Is there a spot to rest? And how would you know it's a spot to rest? Might there be a bench? What might that say about the trail? Could it say that somebody else has traveled here before and this is a really great place to, watch the sunset? Is this a trail in a park? Do lots of people travel? Is it evening? Is there light coming from somewhere? Do you know where this trail is headed? And if you don't know, how might you find out? Could you climb one of the trees? Is there a grassy hill you could go walk up on top of and get a bigger perspective to see where your trail might be headed? Are there signposts on any of the trees that would give you mileage information or a marker that, oh, this is actually out of bounds? So maybe we put a sign up there. Says, don't go this way. And might it be saying don't go that way because it's dangerous or because it's someone else's property? I don't know. Only you know this information about your trail. So that's the idea today. And that, again, is just the start of it for me. I have to let this paper dry so that I can go and add some extra layers and different things on here and think about it more. What has my trail been like? Am I at a time where I need to rest on my trail? Do I know where it's headed? Those are the really big questions. But again, I will have a bunch of different questions in my newsletter to help take your insight and your ideas and thoughts on this process, particularly of examining your trail, of looking for clues along the way of what your trail is like, where it might be headed. And then you can make decisions about, do I need to change something about my trail? Do I need to change something about the company I'm traveling in? Do I need to take a rest? Do I need to get moving? All sorts of things like that. I'm going to move on to the next thing that I promised you, and that was to introduce the 100 Tree Challenge today. I thought today might be a good day to introduce this because, well, it's gorgeous outside, and I've really been enjoying being inspired by the trees, and I had a chance to go out and collect a few inspirational pieces for you. Also, it's a couple weeks before May Day, and I don't know if any of you ever did May baskets when you were younger. That was something we used to do with Grandma, is we'd go over to her house as soon as the wildflowers were out. It was not always May Day. Sometimes it was after May Day. We live in northern Wisconsin, so we don't always get the flowers and the spring things before May Day. But anyway, on May Day, you would go out and you'd gather flowers and beautiful things, and you'd tie them in a bow, or you'd put them in a paper cone and tie it with a string so that you could go leave them on your neighbor's doors. Like, just hang them right on the doorknob. Don't knock, you just hang it there, and then you scoot so that when they come home or when they leave the house and go check the mail and come back, they notice this basket hanging. And again, these baskets are not big. Some of them are very tiny. They notice these baskets of beauty, of hope, of, hey, it's spring and flowers are blooming and life is coming back to the world, back to the forest after a long winter, and just happiness. It was a very joy-filled kind of tradition. I do need to look up the actual tradition online for you, and I will put links to that with my newsletter, because I always think it's kind of fun to see how those traditions start. So in that theme of celebrating transformation, of celebrating spring here in the Northwoods of Wisconsin and other places in the world, I thought it would be fun to make 100 trees, little trees that would get us playing with our art. And so often with transformative art, when we're working on art journaling, when we're doing art therapy, we're really focused in on ourselves and bettering ourselves. But I thought it might be a fun time to look out, to branch out, to see others in our life, and how could we add some beauty and hope and growth to their lives. And so 100 trees is what I came up with. So as you go out in the world, look at the different tree types out there. There's so many, and that's why I think 100 trees, I don't think it's going to be a hard thing to come up with 100 different ways of drawing, painting, collaging a tree. You could zoom in and you could see different things. Lichen is all sorts of different colors on the branches. Some of it's pretty smooth. And I see pink and off-white and almost like a greenish, bluish color sometimes. There's the fuzzy green. This is really soft stuff. There's different colors of barks. The white birch. It's one of my favorites. There's smooth bark and there's rough bark. Here's a really bright green color on that one. Some of them, I did find one tree that was starting to bud a little bit, but they're kind of fuzzy. And this bark is very pale. And there's some trees that still look very, very dormant. Lots of little branches. Some have thicker branches. They haven't gotten so thin. They haven't branched out so far. These kind of like curl up. So there's so much out there to inspire us to look for variety in our lives. So these are clearly deciduous trees. They're going to have leaves that are not out yet. And then you have your evergreen trees that always have needles. Some of them are short. Some of them have little pine cones. Some of them have big pine cones. There's brighter greens and there's darker greens. And there's the flat kind of branch, and then there's the bushier branch. There's ones with really long needles. And this one is just starting to get its pine cone. Some of them have lost all their needles. And you can see how different these branches are. Some of the long ones are shorter than other long ones. And then you have this cinnamon pine, and that's just a joke. These are actually dead, dried out, but it's a different color than normal, and it's something that's in the forest. And then the pine cone. So little inspiration to noticing the variety around you. These are obviously very large. I don't even know if they're from up here. Those are really large pine cones. So with the 100 Tree Challenge, grab yourself some little pieces of paper. You could even go online and you can order little discs of wood that come with twine. And you could draw, you could wood burn, you could paint, you could collage right on there and drop them off at your neighbor's house to encourage them. You could write an inspirational message or a verse on there. Make sure on the back that you hashtag it with 100 Tree Challenge. And if you want to share all of your creations or just your favorite ones, make sure you post those on Instagram or Facebook and hashtag them with 100 Tree Challenge so we can all start seeing the diversity and our forests grow. If you have any questions, let me know. I will detail this challenge and today's art activity of looking for clues along the path of our life in my newsletter. And you can sign up for that at hopeandhealingathome.com. And also make sure to let me know if there's a topic, if there's a supply, if there's something you'd like me to create a video for. So make sure you sign up, follow me, turn your notifications on so that you know when the next lives are, and let me know what you'd like to see in another live, and I will make sure to do that. I hope you have a great day, a great spring. I hope you will participate and share about the 100 Tree Challenge. I think it could be a really fun thing to watch develop online. And I think it could be fun for each of us to challenge ourselves, looking at the world, reasons to pay attention to what's around us, to the transformation, to the beauty, to the little clues around us that life is still springing fresh, it's still growing, it's still continuing, that there's constant transformation around us, and there's beauty, even in the pieces that seem to be dying or fading away. And then as part of that 100 challenge again, the 100 Tree Challenge is to share those 100 trees, or at least a good chunk of them, with others around you and spread that joy and encouragement. Thanks so much. I hope you get to enjoy some nice weather wherever you're living today.